Okay, hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody, to All About English Live. This is Dennis Wilborn, and I hope that you're excited for this show. I'm having some all kind of internet issues today, so I hope we don't get dumped offline. Uh, Let me know if you're here and join the comments. Give me a little thumbs up or a like or a hello. Actually, yeah, make sure that when you're watching this show, make sure to like the show. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And today, I am excited to present some of my clients and subscribers have asked for a presentation about presentations. That's right. They want me to talk about giving presentations. So I'm going to wait for just a few minutes here, wait for people to log on and see if anybody joins me. If you're in the chat, drop a note in the chat because we are going to have a question and answer session at the end. I'm going to ask some questions and hopefully get some answers. And of course, you can ask your questions as well. I'm more than happy to do that. So I see we got one person uh, watching. I see the little eyeball. Why don't you let me know where you're from? And if you want to leave your name too. Oh, that's hot coffee. Wow, 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 wow. Fresh hot coffee. Yes. Okay. I'm ready to go. All right. So, all right. One person watching. All right. We are going to go right into the presentation then. I'm going to share the screen. Oops. And let's just see what we got. Uh-oh. Why don't I see what I'm looking at? Um, where's my okay, let's stop sharing this and see if we can load this up. We're having some technical difficulties already. Okay. What's happening here? Refreshing the page. So that's the problem with technology these days. We've got AI, we've got all kinds of processing power, we've got amazing things that we can do. We walk around with these little computers in our pockets, and yet we still can't get everything to work all the time. So let's hopefully we can get this thing going. Why is this not pages unresponsive? No kidding. No kidding. Thank you for sharing that. All right, let's see if we can. All right. Well, unfortunately, my presentation page is not responding. So let me see if I can open it uh, in another way here. Well, oh, hey, Mandy. La, nice to see you. Forgive the technical difficulties that we're having here, please. And I'm trying to get presentation open because it just crashed on me. Okay, welcome to. Here we go. Let's try to get this thing going. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Uh-oh. That wasn't a good song. Good sound. Okay. Hold on. Come on. Open this file, please. Please open the file. Okay. Well, we have a presentation, and I'm going to try to present it, in the usual way. All right. Okay. Let's try this again. We're going to try this one more time and attempt to start the presentation. Mandy, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now, or you can ask them later. It looks like this is going to be, right now, just you and me. It's like a free class, except I can't hear you talking. Too bad. Well, I hope I've got the technical issue already sorted out, but thank you for waiting. Let's see if we can share the screen. Okay. Share. Okay. And so let me jump in. And can you see my screen here? Yes, you can. Let me see if I can present it as a proper presentation. Okay. All right. Well, this is not very, very handy, is it? Let me see here. Show presenter view. Okay. All right. Let me see here. So We're having all kinds of technical difficulties. Oh, this is why when you're making presentations, you need to prepare beforehand and make sure you have everything all set and ready to go beforehand. Because you end up avoiding situations like this. So I'm going to try to go into presenter view. Show presenter view. Yeah, I'd like to see the presenter view. Thank you very much. And I'm going to shrink that down a little bit so I can see. Well, that's not fun. So, so let's just roll into the presentation. So, as I said earlier, this is how to master international presentations. This is not a mastery course. It's only a live presentation. And because of the way the system is set up, I am unable to actually see my chats. So you can go ahead and ask your questions and I will answer them after I finish the presentation, and we'll just see if we can move along in that way. This is a strange setup we've got here. So, well, you know, Mandy, you're right. While we've got everybody waiting, since everybody's waiting, I'm just going to go back to this screen and try to sort this out in a different way. Okay. All right. I got it up on the screen, but unfortunately it's not very helpful because I can't see what's happening on the rest of the page. I need another monitor if I'm going to do this. Unfortunately, I don't have one. So, all right, let's see if we can figure another way to do this. Let's see, present. I guess I could try to download the slides, but first I got to save them. Okay. All right. And this is why it's good to have your practice time in advance. Okay, so there you can see my screen, but as soon as I hit the present button, you can no longer see what I'm seeing, or can you? Well, I know what we'll do. We'll just stop sharing, and I will just upload the slides directly. How about that? And we'll run them through here. We won't get a chance to see the nice little transition effects, but that's okay. We'll still make it work. Okay. Okay. We'll save this in documents and save it in the YouTube folder. And thanks for your patience, Mandy. I really appreciate it. I'm just trying to get this all set up properly so that we can go live with this. Okay, save that. All right, let's try this. We'll present actual slides from the computer. Oh, by the way, Mandy, do you like my background? It's actually kind of fun. I just designed it the other day. Okay, I'm glad you're being understanding. Here we go. Targeting tips. And tips live. Okay. Files in use. Okay. Try again. All right. Well, now we're 10 minutes into the. Yeah. Oh, thank you. You know, you can see there's my family in the background. It's not very clear, but there is my family, and there's my wife and I. That was when she was pregnant with our third baby. We had some nice pictures done up. So I know it's not very clear, but it's not meant to be because this is not family share time. All right, let's see. It's processing, and here we go. All right, let's jump into add to the stream. Here we go. Mastering international presentations. I got it! Hooray! Hooray! All right, let's move on. So, as I said before, this session today. I know we're 10 minutes into the live stream and we're just now getting to the presentation. So thanks for your patience, Mandy, and anybody else who watches this later on. All right. So presenting in front of an international audience can be very intimidating. So I'm just going to give you some tips that I've picked up along the way for how you can do that in a better way. So, what makes it so intimidating is you've got multiple reasons. You've got the fact that there's a language barrier. There's also cultural barriers in between you and your audience, perhaps, and that can add a lot of stress to the situation. But if you spend the right time preparing for the presentation, and you get yourself in the right mindset, you can overcome the obstacles that come along with any presentation. Let's see, I just noticed you can't really see, so I'm going to drop myself out of the picture here for just a second, in case you're trying to read along. Okay. So in this session, we're going to talk about specific tips on how you can be confident when you're presenting in any international business meeting or anything like that. So first and foremost, before you do anything, you want to take your time to do your research. Okay, it's absolutely essential to do your research. So take the time to learn about the culture and the customs of your audience. So if you're in a I'll put my picture back on there. If you're in a business where you're dealing with a lot of different cultures, that's a lot that you have to take into account. But if you're talking to people from various other societies or other cultures, excuse me, if you're just like, for example, if you're from Taiwan, like you, Mandy, and you're trying to do presentations to people who are from the US, then you only really need to do some research about United States customs and United States culture, which is in and of itself not all that easy, because it is a melting pot, as we say in the United States. So by taking the time to learn about those cultures, you can tailor your presentation to the needs and the expectations of the audience. So you're going to want to tailor your presentation to your audience. Understand their business practices, their communication styles, and their values will not only show them that you respect their culture, but it also helps you to establish a connection or a rapport with them. R-A-P-P-O-R-T. No, R-A-P-O-R-T, rapport. All right. Also, you want to make sure you practice your presentation. The key to feeling confident when you're making a presentation is to be sure to practice as much as you can. I know that I've talked with Mandy and many other people about how important it is to practice your speech until you feel comfortable with the material. So you can rehearse that in front of a mirror. You can record yourself. You can present to a colleague, to a friend, to a coach like me. And this will give you an opportunity to receive feedback and then make the necessary adjustments to your presentation before the big day. That's a big deal. It's very important that you get your practice in so that you're not left without the right words, as I am right now, before you're doing when you get up to actually give the speech. Also, if you're feeling like, oh, I'm so nervous, I'm so unconfident about the presentation, by practicing in advance, a lot of those nerves will filter away. A lot of that nervousness, especially about maybe your accent, your pronunciation, your language, a lot of that will filter away because you've said it so many times, you're comfortable with it. How do I know that? Because when I was an actor, acting on stage, I used to have to memorize all of my lines for the entire show, not just my lines, but everyone else's lines, so that I knew when to come in. And that's not easy to do, to get the whole thing in your head. That's why stage presentations tend to practice for weeks in advance before they actually go on to present the show to an audience. It's not easy, but the more you practice, the more comfortable you feel, and the more natural you will come across. So you also need to remember to speak clearly and slowly. This comes from practice. So when you're practicing, practice speaking clearly and slowly. Avoid using complex language, jargon, or slang that may be difficult to understand for other non-native speakers. Now, if you're just speaking to a native English speaking audience and you're comfortable using slang or jargon, then go right ahead. But as I said I've said before with emails and things like that, avoiding jargon and acronyms and things like that that are not familiar to your audience is very, very important. Um, so also speaking at a moderate pace and using simple and concise sentences that will ensure that your audience can follow along. And that's really important. You want your audience to be able to follow everything you do. Um, now, you'll notice that I'm using my hands a lot when I'm speaking. That is because you can only see my face and you can see my hands, but you can't see the rest of my body. But when you're on a stage giving a presentation, do use appropriate body language. So body language does play an essential role in communication. You may not know this. Here's a little fun fact. Body language, when you're speaking, only about 7% of your communication is the words that you use. That's right. Only about 7% of your communication overall is coming from the words that you're using. And over 55% of communication is through your facial expressions and your body language. Isn't that mind-blowing? So majority of your communication is actually what you're doing with your hands and your body and your face. So be sure that you are maintaining good eye contact with your audience. If you're doing it like I am, I try to look at the camera because I can't see your faces, unfortunately. It's not like when we're in a one-on-one class or a group class. I can't see your faces, but I can still look at the camera and you can see that I actually am trying to maintain eye contact. So the other thing is your posture. You want to stand tall and use those hands to not only point to things, like if you have hey, look, here's my picture of my logo, and here is my family in the background. So not only can you point with your hands, but you can also expand your ideas with your hands and things like that. However, that being said, you want to be mindful of the cultural differences in body language. Some cultures have gestures that may suggest different meanings. For example, this is from the university that my father went to. Let me zoom in on the screen there, or make it a little bit bigger. So my father went to a school called the University of Texas in Austin, and they do this as a cheer for their team, Hook 'em Horns. That's where I was born, by the way. Hook 'em Horns, UT, University of Texas, Hook 'em Horns, and because their mascot is the Longhorn steer, so that's representative of the long horns of the big cow, and so Hook 'em Horns is great if you're from Texas, but if you're from some other cultures, this is very rude to do. So be very careful, be mindful of the cultures that you're presenting to. All right. And you may have to do a little research before you go. So talk to people from that place or from that country. Now, next, not the last part of the section here, but really before you go, it's very important to keep in mind your state of mind, your mindset before you go on the stage. So be sure to take a moment before you go on stage, before you start your presentation. Take a moment to breathe and relax. Take some deep breaths and calm your nerves and focus on your message. Okay. Remember that your audience is there to listen to you. Okay. They're not there because for themselves. They're there to hear what you have to say and pick up from you and gain from your knowledge. So they want you to do well. They want you to succeed. So that's a key thing to remember. when you're out on that stage. Be sure to relax. And another tip that's very, very important, make sure you get lots of rest. Make sure that you're eating healthy, especially uh, the week before and stuff like that. Part of being prepared means taking the time to rest. That will help you to keep your nerves under control. It'll keep your mindset in the right place. So keep that in mind. So let me summarize the whole thing and just say that when you're presenting to an international business meeting, even though it can be a real challenge, so I'm just going to go up here and we'll leave this. We'll leave this where it is. Oh, just bouncing all over the place. Oh my gosh, I can't get this. So the main things that I want you to take away from this is that with the right mindset, with the right preparation, you can overcome all of the challenges that we've discussed so far, all of the challenges. So make sure you do your research, practice your presentation, speak clearly and slowly, use the appropriate body language, and remember to breathe. And just by following these little tips, you'll be able to present with confidence and authority no matter where you are. Now, I have a larger article that I have written on this that's several pages long that goes into a little bit more depth on each one of these topics. But because I didn't want to be talking on one part of this presentation for 30 or 40 minutes, I thought, we'll summarize it, and that way we can get into some questions. Mandy, you asked, is it useful to let me just put this on the screen so you can see. Mandy says, is it useful that practice by fascia a mirror? I think you mean facing a mirror. Is it useful to practice by facing a mirror? Yes, absolutely. I'm so proud. I love the fact, and I love to brag about my wife because she told me this story many years ago. That's how she learned English. She learned English by practicing in a mirror and interviewing herself or giving speeches in front of a mirror. That's how she did it. She didn't take English classes. She didn't have a coach. I mean, she's got a free coach now, kind of free, but I work for sandwiches. But yeah, I mean, that's how she taught herself English from childhood because she just had a passion for it. And I absolutely love that, that little useful tack. Mandy also says, eye contact is the hardest portion. Eye contact. Yeah, eye contact is a real challenge to see, to handle, because especially if the lights are very bright on you and the audience itself is really dark, you can't really do eye contact. But then you do what I'm doing right now. I can't see your face. I can't see your eyes, but I can look into the camera. So it's a little bit easier if the audience is dark. And then you can just kind of look out there and, it seems that you're making eye contact. But if you are working a smaller room, like in a meeting or something like that, periodically look at people in the eye as you're talking to them. Okay. Just, you don't have to lock eyes and make this fiery, smoldering look. No, you just kind of glance at each other, glance at the people one by one, and that's how you can show that you're interested in them and what they have to say. Another good question. So, all right, what if I can't answer the question in English, but I do know the answer? I just can't find the appropriate words. If you can't find the answer in English, if you're trying to find the appropriate words, go back to my simple KISS rule. The KISS rule is simple. K stands for keep, I, it, S, super simple. Keep it super simple. If you can do that, you're halfway there. Let's go back to last week when we were talking about questions. If someone asks you a question that you find too difficult to find the appropriate words for, what you can do is use a little stalling technique. You can stall and ask them what they mean by the question, or you can ask them for more information about the question or something like that. So there's all kinds of things that you can do with that information. All right, let's another question from Mandy. We're just going to jump into another question. Hold on. Mandy says, if you have more than two audience, I'm assuming you mean two people, two members in the audience, how should I do? How should you answer or handle the situation? If you have more than two people in an audience for eye contact, I'm assuming you're talking about eye contact. Then just switch back and forth. You're not going to be staring at one. You're not going to be staring at one person the whole time. Actually, that'd be the worst thing you can do, because then the other person will feel neglected. So, switch back and forth. Dunk, dunk, dunk. It is much easier, again, when you have a larger audience, because you can kind of filter them out and just kind of stare at different areas. One thing is for sure, unless you are right next to or in front of a person, you can look in their general direction and they will feel like you're looking at them. So like you can look at somebody's ear and it will kind of look like they're looking at, unless you're very close. But if you're quite far back and you're just it'll look the same. It'll look exactly the same. So you can do this. All right, let's take a look at some key vocabulary I wanted to talk about, because vocabulary is important. So the first one, intimidating, causing fear or nervousness. So for example, speaking in front of a large audience can be intimidating. Yes, it's an adjective, so use it as such. Customs, the social practices. Yeah, I know. It sounds like I need to practice a lot on that. Customs, the social practices or traditions of a different group or people. It is important to learn about the customs of your audience before presenting. Of course. All right. Tailor. Now, here's a verb that I think is important to notice. Tailor means to modify or adjust to fit a particular audience. So you can modify, actually, tailor comes from cutting clothing to tailor it to fit a certain person. But in this case, we're talking about tailoring your performance or your proposal or presentation to fit your audience. So just think of a dressmaker or a person who cuts clothes. They are tailoring your clothes to fit. You do the same thing with your presentation. Another word I used was rehearse. Rehearse means to practice in preparation for a public presentation. We do the same thing when we're acting. You rehearse a lot. It's the same thing as practice, right? So practice. It's important to rehearse your preparation, your presentation before delivering it. Next one there is pace. Pace, the speed at which someone speaks. So you want to keep a moderate pace so non-native speakers can help and can understand what you're saying in your presentation. All right. And I'm not going to get too much into these other ones, but let's get into some questions. You don't need to look at the pictures because, yeah, come on. Let's see if I can show you some. We'll just talk about some questions here. So anybody who's been here, I know Mandy has given presentations to people who are from different cultures of her for her. So if you have ever given a presentation, how did you prepare for it? If you've given a presentation to native English speakers or non-native English speakers, but you had to give the presentation in English, how did you prepare? Anybody? I mean, I remember many times that I've had to give presentations. I used to teach how to do defensive driving in Korea. When I worked for a company here, it wasn't my main job, but because I spoke English and because many people from many different countries came to Korea to work, I was tasked with teaching them how to drive defensively in Korea. That's not an easy thing to do, but it was challenging because even though it was the similar presentation every time, I still had to make sure that I stayed on top of what the traffic laws were, because those are changing all the time. I had to make sure that I had good stories and good videos to prepare and present, and ask good questions. Now, this was not an online presentation; it was an in-person type of thing. So, I often had to do what Mandy, like I was just telling Mandy, look different people in the eye as I'm giving the presentation. Um, Anybody have any comments about that? Nope. Okay. I'm just trying to keep the presentation a little bit shorter this time. What are some of the cultural differences that you should consider when presenting to an international audience? What are some of the cultural differences that you should consider when presenting to an international audience? Let's see. I think I'm gonna try to put these in the chat. Can I do that? Oh my goodness, it worked. I can put them in the chat. Now, can I share them on the screen? Ah, yeah. Wow. Wow. Look at that. I can share them on the screen. That way you can see. So I love technology when it works. um, that's pretty much the end of the actual presentation. But I'm doing this Q&A section because I'd like to see if we can get a little bit more interaction between the audience. I had one question last week that actually came after the presentation, or after the live stream was over, and that was somebody asked me how long I had been in Korea. And so I'm going to go back a little bit to the AMA section. Someone actually asked, how long have you been in Korea? And they were quite shocked when I said I've been here since December of 2012. So a little over 10 years in Korea. Now, not the whole time. I wasn't here for every single day of that 10 years, but my first time here was December of 2012, and I stayed here for a month. And I used to work a month on and a month off. And I would fly back to California, or sometimes I went to Scotland a few times, or at least once, and other places in the meantime. And but essentially, that was when I fell in love with Korea and absolutely loved it. She asked, why did I come here? And the question was, was that your question too, Mandy? Oh, you should have asked last week. So the question was, she also asked, why did I come? And the reason that I came to Korea, and but not the reason that I stayed, was I was working as a chief officer on a drill ship for a oil drilling company. And I was the number 2 guy, the chief officer, and we went to work. We were sent here to basically be involved in the construction of the ship. And then after the ship was constructed, we left in October of 2013. And at the time, I wasn't sure if I was ever going to come back. But a few months later, actually, yeah, about 2 months later, I came back on a vacation, and I decided I'm going to move to Korea. And I stayed in Korea I lived in Seoul from 2014 to 2015. Again, still working 1 month on and working a month off. So I did time in New Zealand and South America and the Gulf of Mexico, but I was still month on, month off, month on, month off, back and forth between those different places and Seoul. But after a year in Seoul, I decided I had to stick around in. I missed the country living, country living of Ulsan. The Seoul is a great city, but it's just a little too busy for me. I like the quiet life. So I came back down here to Ulsan, South Korea, where the shipyard is, and got lucky, found a place, and decided to stay here by the ocean. I love it. I get to go out and walk by the sea every single day, even in the rain sometimes. So occasionally, if you follow me on Instagram, you might see pictures of sunrises and sunsets, and well, usually not sunsets, but usually I do walk in the early morning sometimes. Yeah, so yeah, it's a lot of fun. That's to answer the question from last week. Mandy, did you have a question? You had mentioned something to me the other day. I was wondering if you had a question that you might want to answer to. Okay. All right. So I'm going to post some more of these questions here in the chat, and that way maybe we can see them later on. uh, One of the other questions was, how can you tailor your presentation to meet the specific needs and expectations of your audience? So one of the ways that I do that, how can you tailor your presentation to meet the specific needs of your audience? One of the ways you can do that is, again, you start with research and you find out. Um, excuse me, says, as a Korean, in my opinion, it's not easy to do a presentation with people who just like to judge based on my experience. I'll put that on. Yeah. Yeah. It's not easy to do a presentation with people who just like to judge. You know what? You're right. It is. It's really challenging, but you can't go into a presentation thinking about what other people are judging you about. You can, if you go into a presentation thinking about, oh, people are going to judge me, um, then you're just going to be nervous and scared all the time. You have to be going into every presentation with the mindset of, I'm here to share with people. They want to know what I have to say, and so that's what I'm here for. I'm gonna share that information, and the ones who are going to judge, let them judge. I don't care. What difference does it make? So that's a good point, though. But it really doesn't matter in the long run. So back to my original question is, how do you tailor your presentation to the specific needs of your audience? Again, that comes from research. If you're doing a presentation to a company, you want to research and know as much as you can about the company. You want to know as much as you can about what your audience wants. What do they desire? Why are they there? I mean, they're probably there to see you and to learn from you, or to gain some value from you. So if you bring the value, if that's what your main focus is, then you'll be good. Um, in For example, you can ask your audience what they want, if you have the ability to do that. If you're like, I asked many people in advance before I did this presentation, what do you want? What do you want to see a presentation about? And if you watch it, then you'll be able to, or if you listen to them, then you'll know what to say. You'll know how to tailor your presentation to them. So yeah, that's basically the answer to that question. And all right, so what are some, here's an interesting question. What are some of these questions I get just from people, that have been asking me. So I'm posting them in the chat, but some of these people were questions that are asked offline. How can you tailor your presentation to meet the specific needs and expectations of your audience? So, wait, I already asked that question. This is the question. I was like, that sounds really familiar. What are some common language barriers that you might encounter when presenting to an international audience, and how can you overcome them? Whew, that's another tough one. So obviously, the language barriers that we are most used to talking about are just the fact that, some people know English and some people don't. You're going to be talking to, if you're not a native speaker and you are talking to a native speaking audience, that right there is a barrier. And the more you can, I mean, I really mean it when I say that KISS, the KISS rule. Keep it super simple. It's so important, because even if you are speaking at a simple level, everyone in the audience will understand you. It's when we try, and this goes for native speakers too, because if you try to speak above your vocabulary level, or above your grammar level, or above your skill level, if you try to do anything above your skill level, you are going to look less credible. You're going to look less believable and be less understandable. So oftentimes that's the biggest barrier that many language and English learners try to jump over is that they try to make their language more complicated. They try to use very complex sentences, or they try to use complex, high level sounding words that they have not practiced with. Now, if you practice with them and you sound great and you know you sound great, by all means, go for it. That's really good. But if you haven't, then I really recommend that you start doing that. It's so important to, when you get into the time where you're making the presentation, keep your language as simple as possible for yourself, because then you'll build the credibility with your audience. Okay. And if you're speaking with the non-native speaking crowd, that's the same thing goes. If you're speaking with people who don't know English as well, if you keep it simple, then they will all understand you as well. But if you try to go too high, even if you can speak at that higher level, you may lose your audience as well. So, I mean, a lot of people wonder why Donald Trump did so well. It's because he spoke English when he makes speeches, not spoke. He still gives speeches. He speaks at a level that's the same all the time. He speaks at the same level all the time, and he speaks to a specific audience. And that is, I shouldn't say the specific audience. He's speaking to the lowest common denominator, to use a mathematical term. So, there's a bell curve in skill levels when it comes to English. So on one end, you've got people who just can't speak English very well, and then you've got the average who speak at about a fifth or sixth grade level. No lie, that's a fact. Even native speakers, and then you've got all the high end people down here who speak the very big fancy words, and you want to meet somewhere in the middle. You want to meet where most of the people are. And that's what Donald Trump did to be so successful. So a lot of the media would give him a hard time for speaking in a lower tone or speaking like a fifth or sixth grader. But you got to understand, that's where most people are. And so keep it simple is a really good rule. Keep it super simple. That's the KISS rule. Don't forget it. Excuse me, says, any suggestions for being confident? She says, yeah, that's right. You don't want to be Joe Biden. That's right. Don't get me started on Joe Biden. Anyway, so any suggestions for being confident? Yeah. Number one suggestion for being confident. Put your shoulders back. Keep your head up. Stand up straight and look people in the eye. You may not feel confident in that moment, but by acting confident, it will build the confidence in your system. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but the science of psychology has shown time and again that by acting a certain way, it will actually make you feel a certain way. So if you're depressed, smile. I mean, the scientists have shown that if you smile at yourself in a mirror every day and you smile at other people, you are actually improving your mood. Even if you don't feel like smiling, smile. The same thing goes for confidence. Even if you don't feel confident, make yourself stand confidently and walk confidently, and you'll start to feel more confident. And another side benefit to that, if you are walking confidently, you're also safer. They did a study many years ago. A psychologist, they went into a prison and they asked the people who had been put in prison for violent crimes against other people, and they showed them pictures of regular people walking on the street, and they asked them to point out who they would choose as their victims if they were looking for victims to rob or to kill or something like that. And they all chose the same types of people. And the interesting thing about it was that all of the people that they chose did not look confident. Another interesting thing that they found was that all of the people that they chose had been victims of crimes themselves. Let that sink in. I've been in countries all around the world, and I never walk around in a unconfident way at all. I always keep my head back, my shoulders up, my back straight, and I look confident. I may not feel confident, but I've never once been a victim of a crime. Why? Well, it might be because I'm 6'2", or whatever that is in meters. 1 point, but and then you will feel. I mean, so the point is, the confidence comes from the inside, and it protects you from the outside. So enjoy that little tidbit. I think I'm going to leave it right there, because that's a really good place to leave it. I want to say I appreciate everybody who joined me tonight. Thank you for dealing with the first 10 minutes of technical difficulties, Mandy, and anybody else who watches this. I will cut up the video and edit out the bad part. But thank you again. This has been a lot of fun. I love answering questions, and I love it when people ask questions along the way. So have a great weekend, the rest of your weekend. Tomorrow's Sunday, and it's really, oh yeah, please, if you'd like to show support, if you'd like to help me sort out my technical difficulties, you can also reach out and buy me a coffee at the link down below, www.buymeacoffee.com/allabouting, because you can't fit ling. So, all right. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend. This is Dennis on All About English Live. Bye.